How's it going, everybody? This is going to be another brief video kind of going more in depth on moving heads. This also is an attachment to my previous video. I talked a bit about, setting up moving heads in Maestro, as well as setting those widths and offsets. This video is going to dig a little bit deeper into those widths and offsets and what they actually do with regards to your fixtures. In my previous video, I did mention fixtures generally have a certain degree pan, a certain degree tilt. Those were kind of misquoted. Tilt on most fixtures is going to be right around a 270 degree tilt. So I said 180 previously. It's actually closer to like 270 on a lot of those fixtures. And your pan, that is 540 degrees on a lot of fixtures. So I have a simple fixture here. This is just knockoff LED moving spot fixture. This one has gobos. It has a prism in it, things like that. It has a killer wheel. But to talk kind of more about what a moving head fixture does, what it has. So again, as we mentioned, there's going to be both an X and a Y axis on a lot of fixtures. You may find a manual online where it talks about that X and Y axis. I have one here for this specific fixture, and as you see here, this one does talk pan and X pan, and tilt and Y tilt. Those X and Y pans and tilts, those are more of the fine-tuned 16 bit or 8-bit movements. The pan and tilt, sometimes you will find a guide where it says, your pan is, it won't say pan, it'll say X. Tilt won't say tilt, it'll say Y. So your X-axis is your pan. And again, on a fixture, pan is this rotation here. This, where the whole top of the fixture is rotating. That's your pan. And again, that's a 540 degree pan on a lot of fixtures. And then tilt is the actual moving head portion. This portion moving up and moving down. So that's your tilt. So your X-axis and your Y-axis. And as mentioned, that tilt generally is a little bit higher than 180. This one looks more like 180. It's a little more than 180, as you see here. That's like centered. This one is sweeping a little bit more than 180. And then again, that pan, you have a full rotation plus some. So if we start here, there's 180, there's 360. We still got another 180, then we got a little bit more, and that's our 540 degree pan. So what does that mean with regards to like Maestro and your widths and offsets? So when you set a DMX value, when you send a DMX value to a fixture to pan, your value is going to be in the range of 1 to 255, or 0 to 255. So a 0 would be fully set over on one side. 255 for pan would be fully set on the other side. So that's your full rotation. Tilt, same thing. You're going to send a value between 0 and 255. 0 being, fully facing one direction, 255 being fully facing the other direction. So what happens when you set your widths and offsets? So with regards to pan, if we edit this channel here, by default Maestro is going to do a 25% width on your pan, and your offset's going to be centered on 0. So that'll be just 0%. So what does that mean with regards to pan? So when Maestro reduces the width, so we'll look at the width specifically to start. What that's doing essentially is cutting down the amount of DMX values that Maestro is going to use for a range. So instead of sending 0 to 255, now it's only going to send 1/4 of those values. So if we pull out a calculator here, and I got a little calculator open, say we have 255 for our DMX values, and we're going to half that. So now Maestro is only going to send a range of 64 values. So, if we consider 0 starting from 1 to 63, that's technically 64 values. So Maestro is only going to send a range of 64. Now, this does not specifically mean that it's going to send 0 to 64. This just means that it's only going to send a range of 64 values. Now, you also have the offset setting. Now, what does the offset setting do? So if you have your offset set to 0, what it's going to do is it's going to start from that halfway point around that pan. So if we got a 540 degree pan, there's our 180, there's our 360, and we'll do a little math because I'm not the greatest at math here. Let's do 540 degrees times 0.5. So 270 is where our center point would be with a 0 offset. So what's going to happen is, so we got starting point of 0, 180 for a full rotation. 270 is not all the way to 360. So I mean, it's going to kind of put our starting point kind of in this general area. Again, my math is not the greatest, but you'll get the understanding of when you have your offset set to 0, it considers half of that range the center point. So what does that mean when you combine the two together? So if I have an offset of 0 and a width of 25%, what's going to happen is my fixture is going to start at that 0 point, but it's not going to sweep the full 540 degrees. It's only going to sweep 1/4 of that. So again, if we did that math and we look back at 540 times that 25%, it's only going to sweep in a 135 degree range. So if, say, we consider this our center point, 135 of that is going to be kind of like this. It's going to sweep not fully to the right, not fully to the left, but within kind of a triangular range in between those two. And this is kind of what we're looking for. So 25% fits pretty well already with regards to the range that we want our moving head to sweep. So looking back at Maestro, as I mentioned, your width's going to be 25% by default on the pan side of it. So how do I get my fixture pointing centered to the spot where we want it to start from? And one tip that Gabby recommended that users do is drag your width all the way down to 0 so that it's not doing any sweeping. But now play with your offset. And what the offset's going to do, like I said, it's going to set that center point where you want that fixture to center from. And again, that sweeping range, that width, is going to foul from that center point. So if the fixture is pointing here as center, that width is going to sweep the 135 degrees from that 0 point that it considers. So you have your 60 7.5 degrees this way, 67.5 degrees that way, 135 degrees in total. So what you would do is you would play around with that offset until you get your fixture facing forward. And again, that's your pan. So your fixture might look like this when you first set it up because your tilt is set to 0 and 50, so it's going to be pointing up. But your pan, get that pan to where it's facing forward, or the direction that you would like it to face. Once you have that offset set, then you play with your width and figure out how big of a sweeping range you want that fixture to do. So again, that 25% width is about 135 degrees, which is a pretty good range for most moving heads. I mean, that's facing forward, not sweeping like this. But again, play with that offset until you get your fixture facing forward, the pan portion facing forward. For most fixtures, like I said in the previous video, that 25% width is a pretty good number already. So we can always just leave that one set as is. And the offset, what I've seen on many fixtures, a 35% offset tends to center it right about where you want it. And again, that's if your fixture is set with a full 540 degree pan, that 35% is going to put you about right where you want it. But again, play with those settings. Now, on that flip side, talking about tilt. So let's look, we have width and offset as well on our tilts. And many fixtures will have that 270 degree tilt. This one's not really fully 270. It's kind of a little more than 180. I'd probably say that's closer to like 230. But again, my math is not the greatest. But with regards to Maestro, when you open up tilt, it's going to have a default width of 50% and a default offset of 0. Now mine's set to -50, but I'm going to set this to the default just to show you what that looks like. So width of 50 and offset of 0. Now again, talking about how Maestro handles the data that it's sending, if you set your width to 50, it's going to half this full range that the head fouls. So instead of doing this full 270, It's now only going to do half that, so you'll have kind of a motion like this. But it is pointing upwards because your offset is 0. And a 0 offset would be completely 50% of whatever the sweeping range is. 0 is that center point. So again, with tilt, to get that facing forwards towards the crowd, because you already got your pan. Your pan's already facing the way you want it. Now you got to work on that tilt. And again, 50% tilt is a pretty good number because that's going to do that half kind of motion, which kind of what you want. You might want that fixture pointing up a little bit and then pointing towards the crowd, doing a motion like this. 50% is pretty good already for that width. So you may not need to play with that again too much. But like Gabby said, if it's easier for you to find that center point, drag that width all the way down to 0, so that fixture no longer is going to be moving within that range. And then play with your offsets. And again, many moving heads, the ones that I've used myself, they tend to fit either in the positive 50% or negative 50%. Because again, half of that is doing this. So if you half that, you're getting this already with your width, which is kind of what you want. With your offset, say your offset's set to 0. If you set that to 50, what it's going to do, it's going to put it here. Negative 50, might put it there, or it might be flipped to where negative 50 is this way, positive 50 is this way. That's kind of the center where you'd like it. Many DJs, they want their lights doing a motion like this towards the crowd. So setting that 50 or negative 50 on the offset will get you to that center point. And then adjusting your width to change how much of a sweeping motion you want to do. So again, if you set that to 50 on an offset and you set that width to 100, it's gonna do the bang, bang. It's gonna do that full kind of sweep. But setting that width to 50%, it halves this 270 degree range down to 135. So now we're just doing a 135 degree motion. And then setting our offset determines where that center point between that 135 is. So it's not 0 from 135. It's where is that 70? Where is that 70? What do we say? We said 130 is 75. So where is that 77.5 degree center point to sweep within 135 degrees? And like I said, 50% width generally is a pretty good fit by default for tilt. And then offset, generally what I've seen is either a negative 50 or a positive 50 degree offset to get that fixture pointing towards the crowd and sweeping in the motion that you're looking for. So again, play with those offsets, set them, see how it works for you. More than likely, like I said, those defaults that Maestro sets for width are probably going to be pretty close to what you want already. Just play with that offset a bit, find that center, so you get your fixtures pointing forward and sweeping the crowd like you normally would want. So it's not facing backwards, it's not lighting up the wall, it's not lighting up the DJ, it's just lighting up that crowd. So hopefully this guide was a little more helpful for you with regards to widths and offsets. Like I said, play around in the Maestro interface, get those settings set the way you want. If you run into issues or you're running into problems, definitely reach out in the Facebook group or in the Discord chat or post in the Maestro forums. Somebody should easily be able to help you there. And again, thanks for watching this. I will upload some more videos regarding custom fixtures here shortly.